Dear students, honored guests, parents, friends, welcome to this 100th anniversary commemoration of the Armenian Genocide. Today signifies the darkest day of our 3,000-year history of our nation. We have suffered incredible losses during the First World War. Our wound is still open, sore, and still bleeding. What I would like to do is now to invite you to stand for a minute, to bow our heads, not just to the fallen innocent of the 1.5 million Armenian souls, but also the millions of victims of other nationalities. You may not know that there were 750 Assyrians, Chaldeans, who also perished under the hands of the Ottoman Turks. There were 950,000 Greeks who also gave their lives under the Ottoman rule. Այսօր ինչպես ասի մեր բաղունդյան ամենեն մութ օրն է, 100-րդ տարելիցն է մեր մեծ եղերնին, և երկու խոսք ուզեմ ասել մեր նախնիներուն լեզվով, որպեսի վարպահենք մեր մշակույթը, վարպահենք մեր ուխտը, և մեր պատկանելիությունը հայ ժողովրդին և հայ տանին, պահանջելու համար մեր արդար իրավունքները և քեդին զարնելու անարք Թուրքին, մեր ազգին զոհերուն չարչարանքը և անմոռանալի այս մեղքը. At the aftermath of the Hamidian massacres in 1894, 95, and 96, there were hundreds of thousands of Armenian orphans left unattended, no parents, no food, no shelter. It was an incredible scene. Many historians say that the dead were luckier than the alive. So what happened is a group of Armenians got together. This is in Egypt, in Cairo, in 1906, April 15, 1906, where 10 businessmen, statesmen, bankers, doctors got together and formed what's called the Armenian General Benevolent Union. What we are today is part of this wonderful organization. The main purpose of the AGBU at the time was not to build schools, but to provide shelter, food to the hundreds of thousands of orphans at the aftermath of the Hamidian massacres. So these men got together, brought their funds together, brought their brains together, and they started the organization. Their primary goal was to help the orphans, was to gather the orphans and give them food and shelter and clothing. So you can imagine the desperate situation of the orphans in the deserts of Iraq and Syria and southern Turkey during the summer months. It's unbelievable, scorching heat, terrible conditions, disease, no food, no shelter. So it was the goal of the AGBU to take care of these hundreds of thousands of orphans. The AGBU prospered and now runs centers worldwide in 40 different countries, has tremendous membership, and we are the beneficiaries of this great association, the great organization. And of course, the 5th president of the AGBU, Alex Manoukian, built our school, built this church, together with other benefactors. So truly we have benefited greatly from what the AGBU has done to the Armenian community worldwide. The population of Armenia in Turkey before the genocide was 2.1 million in Ottoman Turkey. After the genocide, 400,000 left, most of them children, most of them orphans. Henry Morgenthau Sr., who was ambassador of the United States in Turkey, sent incredible detailed messages, notes, letters to America saying that this is a deplorable situation and an entire race is being wiped out. America jumped to the aid of Armenians and collected 130,000 orphans, just like your age, from 2 years old to 18 years old. Collected 130,000 Armenian orphans, housed them, built orphanages, and spent at that time $140 million collected money, $140 million, and bought food, clothes, shelter, orphanages, built elementary schools to educate these orphans. I think, yes, we are upset that the president did not acknowledge the genocide again as he promised, but I think we should give our collective thanks to the United States of America for being the #1 nation, the greatest nation to provide incredible aid to Armenia, thus saving all of us. So let us give this great nation our I want to end by saying that this has been fantastic, tremendous 2 weeks of events with the Pope's, Holy Pope Francis's acknowledgement using the term genocide and condemning Turkey for its deeds. The Pope has 1 billion followers, 1 billion, 1,000 million followers. All of them now understand what the genocide is, and they follow the Pope's message. This was a huge slap to Turkey's face. Now, this was, of course, followed by the Kardashian sisters. And what they brought is an awareness with their 100 million followers. They brought a fantastic awareness to Armenia, to Armenians, and the cause of genocide. And of course, I never thought I would use the Kardashians and the Pope in the same sentence, but nevertheless, this is the truth. And they have increased tremendous awareness towards the genocide. And I never knew who Kanye West was up until last week when my children told me about him. And again, Amal Clooney and the Clooney husband, the presidents of, a dozen nations are in Armenia today. We're in Armenia today, commemorating the genocide. Again, we have a wonderful program for you. Thank you for your being here today. This is not just an Armenian cause, it is an international cause. It's one for humanity. And of course, if we do not learn our history, we are bound to repeat the mistakes again. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you.
This presentation is about an ancient people whose civilization is rooted into the biblical times of Noah. A proud Christian nation, as proud as its old mountains. It is also about a failed scheme 100 years ago to exterminate an entire ethnic minority in an empire called Turkish Ottoman. On the night of Saturday, April 24, 1915, in the capital city of Turkish Ottoman Empire, Constantinople, Istanbul, 480 Armenian political and cultural leaders were arrested, tortured, deported, and eventually killed as quickly as possible. Some who survived, like famous composer and musicologist Father Gomidas, went insane. In the coming weeks, another several hundred from the city and its suburbs will be arrested. These mass arrests and executions signaled the start of the Armenian genocide. 1.5 million innocent Armenian men, women, children, and elderly were deported to the Syrian desert and starved to death. Our remembrance of this tragic occurrence has nothing to do with hatred nor revenge. Armenian nation recovered this calamity. They established new homes, built new churches and schools around the world. However, we do remember, and we will never forget. Justice has to be served. The international community does expect acknowledgement and official apology for the descendants of genocide perpetrators, for the killing of 1.5 million innocent human beings. We will never know all the names of the victims of the Armenian genocide. Nevertheless, after 100 years, in 2015, the Armenian Apostolic Church canonized 1.5 million martyrs of the first genocide of the 20th century as collective saints of the Armenian nation.
Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy.
Genocide survivor Krikor Balakian's testimony. April 25th, Easter Sunday evening. It was dark and gloomy. The doors of the train cars shut, and with soldiers posted everywhere, the train started. We began to move further and further away from the places of our lives. Each of us leaving behind grieving and unprotected mothers, sisters, wives, children, possessions, wealth, and everything else. We headed out to a region unnamed and unfamiliar, to be buried forever. The train proceeded south, near city Ankara. The chief of the central prison stood up and began to read off the list of names.
Khatadur Manoukian Akmuni, 52 years old, journalist and politician. Rupen Zartarian, 41 years old, editor and novelist.
Daniel Varujan, 31 years old, poet, school principal. Karikin Khajar, 48 years old, politician, newspaper editor.
Harachun Shaligian, 55 years old, lawyer. Dr. Nazaret Daghabarian, 53 years old, medical doctor.
Sarvis Mirasyan, 42 years old, journalist. Siamanto, 37 years old, poet and public activist. Yervan Sermakesh Famyan Yerukhan, 45 years old, editor and novelist. Hovannes Harutunyan Togadensi, 55 years old, writer and educator.
Dikran Charakian, Indra, 43 years old, poet, public activist. Keram Parserian, 32 years old, writer, columnist.
Melkon Gurjan Haran, 56 years old, publisher and novelist. Krikor Torosyan, 31 years old, satirical writer and publisher.
Ardashiz Haratunyan, 42 years old, poet, translator, and literary critic. Haratun Jakuyan, 60 years old, politician. Diran Kelekyan, 53 years old, college professor and public activist. Garabet Pashayan, 51 years old, medical doctor and public activist.
Sumpad Purat, 53 years old, educator, public activist. Jacques Sayabanian, 35 years old, politician.
Varke Serengulyan, 44 years old, politician, Ottoman parliament member. Parsel Shabazz, 35 years old, lawyer and public activist.
Hagop Terzian, 36 years old, pharmacist and public activist. Haip Tirakian, 44 years old, politician. Rupen Sebag, 31 years old, medical doctor and poet. Krikor Zora, 54 years old, lawyer, novelist, politician, and Ottoman parliament member.
Hampadsum Boyajan, Murat, 48 years old, freedom fighter, politician, Ottoman parliament. Levon Laritz, 33 years old, public activist, professor of literature.
Shabash Christian, 29 years old, educator, public activist. Bishop Gomidas Sogomonyan, 48 years old, musician and composer. And many other names are shouted out. We were shaken on each name as it was called, and then we kissed those who were leaving us. In that instant, we began to weep, and as one person wept, others began to weep too, and we had this feeling that we were going to be separated from each other forever.
Manoukian later learned the details of the killings of this group from one of the Turkish carriage drivers who transported the prisoners to their final destination. Manoukian wrote in his memoirs,
"The Turkish carriage driver came to me depressed and shaken. They began to stab them to death, slashing their arms and legs, and ripping apart their bodies. Tanya Barujan tried to defend himself, and this provoked the killers further. They dug out the eyes of the poet. Sobbing, the carriage driver said to me, 'I am a devout Muslim. I don't want to be in this trade anymore. I'm going to sell my horse and carriage and get out of this town.'